A funeral is a ceremony for honoring, respecting, sanctifying, or remembering the life of a person who has died. Funerary customs comprise the complex of beliefs and practices used by a culture to remember the dead, from interment itself, to various monuments, prayers, and rituals undertaken in their honor. Customs vary widely, both between cultures and between religious groups and denominations within cultures. Common secular motivations for funerals include mourning the deceased, celebrating their life, and offering support and sympathy to the bereaved. Additionally, funerals often have religious aspects which are intended to help the soul of the deceased reach the afterlife, resurrection or reincarnation. The funeral generally includes a ritual through which the corpse of the deceased is given up. Depending on culture and religion, these can involve either the destruction of the body or its preservation. Differing beliefs about cleanliness and the relationship between body and soul mean that a funerary practice that is deeply sacred to one culture may be absolutely taboo in another. When a funerary ceremony is performed but the body of the deceased is not available, it is usually called a memorial service. The word funeral comes from the Latin furnus, which had a variety of meanings, including the corpse and the funerary rites themselves. Funerary art is art produced in connection with burials, including many kinds of tombs, and objects specially made for burial with a corpse. Overview. Funeral rites are as old as human culture itself, predating modern Homo sapiens and dated to at least 300,000 years ago. For example, in the Shanidar Cave in Iraq, in Pongnelwyd Cave in Wales and at other sites across Europe and the Near East, archaeologists have discovered Neanderthal skeletons with a characteristic layer of flower pollen. This deliberate burial and reverence given to the dead has been interpreted as suggesting that Neanderthals had religious beliefs. Although the evidence is not unequivocal, while the dead were apparently buried deliberately, burrowing rodents could have introduced the flowers. Substantial cross-cultural and historical research document funeral customs as a highly predictable, stable force in communities. Funeral customs tend to be characterized by 5 anchors, including significant symbols, gathered community, ritual action, cultural heritage, and transition of the dead body. Religious funerals. Baha'i funerals in the Baha'i faith are characterized by not embalming, a prohibition against cremation, using a chrysolite or hardwood casket, wrapping the body in silk or cotton, burial not farther than an hour from the place of death, and placing a ring on the deceased's finger stating, "I came forth from God, and return unto him, detached from all save him, holding fast to his name, the merciful, the compassionate." A Baha'i funeral service also contains the only prayer that's permitted to be read as a group, congregational prayer, although most of the prayer is read by one person in the gathering. The Baha'i decedent often controls some aspects of the Baha'i funeral service, since leaving a will and testament is a requirement for Baha'is. Since there is no Baha'i clergy, services are usually conducted under the guise, or with the assistance of, a local spiritual assembly. Buddhist. A Buddhist funeral marks the transition from one life to the next for the deceased. It also reminds the living of their own mortality. Christian burials typically occur on consecrated ground. For a time, burial was the preferred practice amongst Christians. This was because of the belief in the resurrection of the body. However, cremations are becoming more common, although some churches still forbid them. The Roman Catholic Church prefers burial because of its belief that burial shows greater dignity to the dead body. The Church earnestly recommends that the pious custom of burying the bodies of the deceased be observed. Nevertheless, the Church does not prohibit cremation unless it was chosen for reasons contrary to Christian doctrine. Congregations of varied denominations perform different ceremonies, but most involve offering prayers, scripture reading from the Bible, words of comfort, and music. One issue of concern as the 21st century began was with the use of secular music at Christian funerals, a custom generally forbidden by the Roman Catholic Church. Hindu antyasty literally means last rites or last sacrifice, refers to the rite of passage rituals associated with a funeral in Hinduism. It is sometimes referred to as antima samskaram, antyakriya, and varaniya, or vani sanskara. A dead adult Hindu is mourned with a cremation, while a dead child is typically buried. The rite of passage is performed in harmony with the sacred premise that the microcosm of all living beings is a reflection of a macrocosm of the universe. The soul is the essence and immortal that is released at the antyasty ritual. But both the body and the universe are vehicles and transitory in various schools of Hinduism. They consist of 5 elements: air, water, fire, earth and space. The last rite of passage returns the body to the 5 elements and origins. The roots of this belief are found in the Vedas, for example in the hymns of Rig Veda in section 10.16, as follows: burn him not up, nor quite consume him, Agni. Let not his body or his skin be scattered, O all-possessing fire. When thou hast matured him, then send him on his way unto the fathers. When thou hast made him ready, all-possessing fire, then do thou give him over to the fathers. When he attains unto the life that waits him, he shall become subject to the will of gods. The sun receive thine eye, the wind thy prana. Go, as thy merit is, to earth or heaven. Go, if it be thy lot, unto the waters. Go, make thine home in plants with all thy members. Rig Veda 10.16. The final rites of a burial, in case of untimely death of a child, is rooted in Rig Veda's section 10.18, where the hymns mourn the death of the child, praying to deity Mritu to neither harm our girls nor our boys, and pleads the earth to protect the deceased child as a soft wool. Among Hindus, the dead body is usually cremated within a day of death. His or her dead body is washed, wrapped in white cloth if the dead is a man or a widow, the 2 toes tied together with a string, a tiyak placed on the forehead. The dead adult's body is carried to the cremation ground near a river or water, by family and friends, and placed on a pyre with feet facing south. The eldest son, or a male mourner, or a priest then bathes before leading the cremation ceremonial function. He circumambulates the dry wood pyre with the body, says a eulogy or recites a hymn in some cases, places sesame seed in the dead person's mouth, sprinkles the body and the pyre with ghee, then draws 3 lines signifying Yama, Kala and the dead. The pyre is then set ablaze, while the mourners mourn. The ash from the cremation is consecrated to the nearest river or sea. After the cremation, in some regions, the immediate male relatives of the deceased shave their head and invite all friends and relatives, on the 10th or 12th day, to eat a simple meal together in remembrance of the deceased. This day, in some communities, also marks a day when the poor and needy are offered food in memory of the dead. Islamic funerals in Islam follow fairly specific rites, though they are subject to regional interpretation and variation in custom. In all cases, however, Sharia calls for burial of the body, preceded by a simple ritual involving bathing and shrouding the body, followed by salat. Cremation of the body is forbidden. Burial rituals should normally take place as soon as possible and include bathing the dead body, except in extraordinary circumstances as in Battle of Uhud, enshrouding dead body in a white cotton or linen cloth, funeral prayer, burial of the dead body in a grave, positioning the deceased so that when his face or body is turned to right side it is faced towards Mecca. Jewish in Judaism, funerals follow fairly specific rites, though they are subject to variation in custom. Funerals in Judaism share many features with those of Islam. Jewish religious laws such as halakha call for burial of the body, preceded by a basic ritual involving bathing and shrouding the body, accompanied by prayers and readings from the Torah. Cremation of the body is forbidden in Orthodox Judaism, but allowed in Reform Judaism. Burial rites should normally take place as soon as possible and include bathing the dead body, enshrouding the dead body, Men are shrouded with a kittel and then with a tallit, while women are shrouded in a plain white cloth, keeping watch over the dead body. Burial of the dead body in a grave. In many communities, the deceased is positioned so that the feet face the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. In Sikhism, death is not considered a natural process, an event that has absolute certainty and only happens as a direct result of God's will or hukum. To a Sikh, birth and death are closely associated, because they are both part of the cycle of human life of coming and going, which is seen as transient stage towards liberation, complete unity with God. Sikhs thus believe in reincarnation. However, by contrast, the soul itself is not subject to the cycle of birth and death. Death is only the progression of the soul on its journey from God, through the created universe and back to God again. In life, a Sikh always tries to constantly remember death so that he or she may be sufficiently prayerful, detached and righteous to break the cycle of birth and death and return to God. The public display of grief at the funeral, or antam sanskar as it is called in the Sikh culture, such as wailing or crying out loud, is discouraged and should be kept to a minimum. Cremation is the preferred method of disposal, although if this is not possible, any other methods such as burial or submergence at sea are acceptable. Worship of the dead with gravestones, etc., is discouraged, because the body is considered to be only the shell and the person's soul is their real essence. On the day of the cremation, the body is washed, bathed and dressed and then taken to the Gurdwara or home where hymns from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the Sikh scriptures, are recited by the congregation, which induce feeling of consolation and courage. Kirtan may also be performed by Rajas while the relatives of the deceased recite Waheguru, sitting near the coffin. This service normally takes from 30 to 60 minutes. At the conclusion of the service, an ardas is said before the coffin is taken to the cremation site. At the point of cremation, a few more shabads may be sung and final speeches are made about the deceased person. The eldest son or a close relative generally starts the cremation process, light the fire or press the button for the burning to begin. This service usually lasts about 30 to 60 minutes. The ashes are later collected and disposed by immersing them in the Punjab. Sikhs do not erect monuments over the remains of the dead. The Siddharan path, the ceremony in which the Siddharan path is begun after the cremation ceremony, may be held when convenient, wherever the Guru Granth Sahib is present. Hymns are sung from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. The first 5 and final verses of Anand Sahib, the Song of Bliss, are recited or sung. The first 5 verses of Sikhism's morning prayer, Japji Sahib, are read aloud to begin the Siddharan path. A hukum, or random verse, is read from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Ardis, a prayer, is offered. Prashad, a sacred sweet, is distributed. Langar, a meal, is served to guests. While the Siddharan path is being read, the family may also sing hymns daily. Reading may take as long as needed to complete the path. This ceremony is followed by Sahaj Path Bhog, Kirtan Sohila. Nighttime prayer is recited one week and finally Ardis, called the Antim Ardis, is offered the last week.